And welcome back to Dear Jane. I'm Scott Baker.
And I'm Marcy Little.
We are brought to you today by our friends at Choose Life Marketing. If you are in the pro-life business and you're trying to reach her specifically, if you're like a pregnancy center and you're trying to reach the abortion-minded woman, you need to check with our friends at Choose Life Marketing. You know, one of the big challenges that if you're in that business, you know that big tech tries to really squash and tries to tamp down that message. They try to censor it basically, but the folks at Choose Life Marketing are really good at fighting that fight and helping your message break through. Check in with them and see what they can do for you and helping you to get that message through. ChooseLifeMarketing.com. So we're visited today with Carrie Murray Nellis. Thanks for joining us today. Abiding Love Adoptions is the name of your group, and you do adoptions a little bit differently. You like to focus on the the birth mother instead of the adoptive parents. What makes that so different from everybody else?
Well, the traditional adoption agency, right? The traditional adoption agency was really where a prospective adoptive parent would come and say, I want to adopt. They would have a home study done. They would either sit on a waiting list. They would pay to sit on a waiting list, however this was done. And then an expectant mom, and we call an expectant mom a mom who's pregnant considering adoption. We don't call her a birth mother until she puts pen to paper and that decision has been made. So an expectant mom would go to that adoption agency and say, I am looking at making an adoption plan. Who do you have that, how can I make that happen? They would say, I have all these families that are home study ready, and either truly, really traditional, the adoption agency would choose, right? And then it became kind of normal for the mom to choose a family within the agency, and everything kind of happened within the house, within that agency. The internet blew that out of the water. And you've got agencies, sadly, who aren't licensed in the state where the mom lives, because the agency has to be licensed in the state where the mother lives. But you've got agencies and working in different states. You've got expectant moms working with agencies, attorneys. You've got adoptive parents in different states. And I saw how adoption as an attorney, because I'm an attorney, I know, don't hold it against me. But I saw as an adoption attorney how adoption was becoming transactional. I would get hired as an adoption attorney. I would get hired by these agencies to walk into the hospital room and to get her to sign the legal documents. And I know this is going to floor you, but walking into the hospital room was the first person she had ever seen in person regarding her adoption. All of the interaction with that mom was over the internet, was via text. They would email, they would FedEx her profile books of adoptive families. She may or may not have met the adoptive parents, but if she did that all alone, nobody there walking that with her. And no one was there helping her at doctor's appointments, talking to her about the resources in her local community that could help her to parent if that was a possibility. What are the different options for her? And so I took it very seriously because in the state of Georgia, where I practice law, I have to sign an affidavit. And it says that, this mom understands exactly what she's doing. She has looked at all of her options. She is not being coerced. She is willingly and knowingly signing this document. And I didn't feel like I could sign that for a lot of moms because no one had really talked to her about these issues. No one really had talked to her about the resources in her community. And I felt like she didn't really understand what she was doing. And so I would refuse to take the surrenders, as we call it in Georgia. Some states call them consents. And the adoption attorneys or the adoption agencies would say, well, I'll just find another attorney who will. And I said, well, I'm not going to be a part of it. So good luck with that. And the more and more that things were happening, I just really saw that adoption was becoming transactional. All of the attention was about the adoptive parents. And no offense to the adoptive parents, but because they were the ones paying the money and sitting there on a waiting list, it was all about them. And no one cared about the woman in the corner crying. And I wanted an agency that centered around her. No offense again to the adoptive parents, but to her. So Abiding Love does things very differently. I take that as a badge of honor that we do things differently. I'm from South Georgia, so we put it on the front porch and give it some sweet tea. And for my friend Marcy, who is a dogs fan, I will say we even say go dogs with that one. So
Go
You guys bark.
dogs.
You guys bark a lot too for
Get
some strange
'em.
reason. I've never got
we
that,
do
but
bark a
yeah.
lot. Yeah, it's a thing. But yeah, so that's kind of why we do things. I wanted an agency that's centered around her. So we do not keep a list of waiting adoptive families. I don't know of any other adoption agency in the whole country that does things the way that we do. But what we do is we exclusively work with expectant moms. So when we have a mom that we're working with and she's, had counseling, she has talked we connect her with a birth mother mentor, someone who has placed for adoption before. We want her to hear from her experience, why she made this decision. What was it like leading up? What was it afterwards? I have walked alongside women for 18 years, but she deserves to talk to someone who has walked this exactly. And so after that, and she says, I want to pursue adoption. We find out kind of what kind of family she wants, where she wants them to live, if she wants them to already have children or not have children, if she wants them to be a Georgia fan or a Florida fan, God forbid. Sorry to your viewers and listeners who are Florida fans. Those kinds of things. And then what we do is we reach out to adoption consultants. And we have trusted adoption consultants that we work with. And let me just tell you, there's what an adoption consultant is, because there's a lot of confusion about that. An adoption consultant is someone who works exclusively with prospective adoptive parents or hopeful adoptive parents, a family that is wanting to adopt. They have zero interaction with an expectant mom. The only interaction they have is a licensed agency who's licensed in the state where the mom lives, or a licensed attorney in the state where the mom lives. If a adoption consultant did actually talk with an expectant mom, then they would be facilitating. And in many states, that is illegal. So I want to make sure that's clear, because a lot of people get confused. They're like, why are you working with facilitators? We are not working with facilitators, only adoption consultants. And we work with very trusted adoption consultants. For us, we want parents that don't just say they love Jesus. I want parents that love Jesus. I don't want people just checking a box saying I'm a Christian. I want people that are going to love this mama big and well, and not just in it to get a baby. And so we have trusted consultants that really vet these adoptive parents. And so they already make sure they have the home study. They've already had the education, all of those things. They have their profile book done. And so they're ready to be shown to a mom. And once that mom looks at that family and says, she might say, I want to talk to these 3 families, or that's the family. Then they come under the umbrella of Abiding Love, and we will work with them. But we always make sure that they understand our priority is going to be that mom. They have their consultant that can be there to be helping and guiding them on their end, but we are here for that mom. And we like that because our job, just to be very honest, and I don't mean to be crass or anything, but I'm not here to find babies for people. That's not my job. And unfortunately, that's a lot of what's happened in the adoption world. Is it's about finding babies, because there are more, and I'm not talking about foster care. Okay. I'm talking about infant adoption, private agency adoption. There are so many more adoptive parents to children being placed for adoption. And so a lot of agencies, what I saw as an attorney, kind of from the outside looking in and getting my marching orders from my clients, right, was that they've got all these people that have paid $10,000-$15,000 to sit on a waiting list, and they're calling them saying, where's my baby? And they don't have as many women making adoption plans. So they really do. There's a lot of coercion that happens with women, unfortunately, to get them to make the adoption plan. So we wanted to kind of change the adoption community, put it on its head, and say, you know what? No offense to adoptive parents, love y'all, but we're here for you. We're here for the birth mom and the expectant mom. We want to love her big and well, regardless of her decision. I'm a very bad, if you want to call it an agency, which there are some adoption agencies that are businesses. I'm going to, say it. But, I'm a bad business person. I do not believe, personally, I don't believe that abortion should ever be an option. But out of the two options of parenting the child or making an adoption plan, adoption should be the last. If mom can parent, we need to do everything we can to help her parent. We need to make sure she has those resources with her pregnancy resource centers, different organizations that are out there like Loveline and Save the Storks and different things that are helping. But there are those moms that is not the best thing. And the best thing is an open adoption. And that's who we're here to serve and to love her regardless. So that was probably longer than you ever wanted.
Carrie,
But
I'm glad you brought up the abortion issue at the end, because that's something I wanted to ask you about. I've been working in the pro-life movement for the last 11 years, and I've heard that a lot, that there are more families waiting to adopt than there are babies available for adoption. And I think sometimes, and I love the pro-life movement. I love people who want to adopt. Obviously, I love the abortion-minded woman who needs help. But I think sometimes there's this misconception that and you see it in memes, like imagine if the government funded adoption instead of abortion. I think there's a misunderstanding of, if all the women who are considering abortion would just place their babies for adoption, then that would solve the problem. And I think that's missing the point entirely. And you just spoke to that. So what are some of the other unhelpful things that the pro-life movement says, or what are some, shed light on this issue for us a little bit, help people within the pro-life movement understand why that's not really the best way to think about this?
Well, I think, I'm thinking about, and I'm thinking about my friends with Sidewalk Advocates. A shout out to them, love them. And we did a training for them a couple of months ago. And, I'm thinking about them, the people that are outside the abortion clinics holding up the sign saying, I'll adopt your baby, or, even like abortion, and they take out the B and put a D and all of those things. The Vitae Foundation, which is an amazing organization, has done research, and they have found that actually makes a woman more abortion determined. The research is showing that things like that is making a woman more abortion determined. And the reason why is because we're belittling her. We're forgetting her. We make them think we are just caring about this baby. And that is not what this is about. And that is one of the things I can say I love that we in the pro-life community have changed. I love, over the last 18 years that I have been involved, I have seen a huge, significant change and shift where we really are who we say we are, and we are caring about the mom, and it's not just about the baby. But when we sit there and say, oh, we'll just make an adoption plan, we're belittling the fact that, yes, she is carrying this child to term. And, I was sitting with a mom this week, actually, and good old Olive Garden. I tell you, we were sitting at the Olive Garden and we were having some lasagna, and she's, halfway through her pregnancy. And I was talking to her about what adoption is, what it isn't. And she was asking questions, and she's like, well, I don't want to hold the baby because I don't want to get attached. And I was like, you're actually physically attached, like literally right now, like physically attached. You're attached. Like that's not going to change things. If this is the decision you're going to make, you need to, we can't force you to do anything, but you need to think about having a healthy hello, all of those things, like really making sure this is your decision. And we've got to make sure we aren't belittling women who are considering adoption and making them think that we're just caring about the baby, that we are here for the woman. And this is a hard decision. A lot of people don't realize the grief that is attached with adoption. It's one of the reasons we created a whole different separate 501c3 called Abiding Love Charities. It's all about post-placement care. And we created the nation's first birth mother support group curriculum, because we have birth mothers on our team that work, and they have actually done abortion support groups, recovery, and it's the same emotions. It's the same feelings of disenfranchised grief and different things like that. And women are not getting served. And we've just belittled the fact of the grief that women are impacted with adoption. And that's one of the things that's important for us. And in the pro-life community, I talk with pregnancy centers all the time. And a lot of pregnancy centers say, well, we go through the three options. We talk about parenting, we talk about abortion, we talk about adoption, and nobody wants to talk about adoption. We get the Heisman, right? Which, by the way, why is Georgia? Nobody from Georgia's gotten the Heisman for a long time. So
Overrated.
sorry, Scott. I
Yeah.
had to throw that in there. No.
Right.
But at any rate, they give you the Heisman. And what happens is, and we've got trainings that we've done through Bright Course and different things, and we have it, we own it, so we can provide it to people, but about it. But one of the things is, we're telling them, okay, if you're at your center and you decide to parent, we've got Earn While You Learn. We've got all these programs for you. We've got parenting classes, right? And if you do decide to abort, I want you to know we love you and we have support groups. We're going to be there for you, right? And if you make an adoption plan, we're going to make a referral to an adoption agency, and, good luck. So by doing that, you're psychologically sending them to two other options: abortion and parenting. And so what we have been doing is we warrant this support group in the pregnancy center so that they can say, if you decide to place, we will make the referral to the adoption agency. Please hear me. Pregnancy centers need to do that. They do not need to be practicing law or, being an agency without a license. But agencies need to be working with the pregnancy centers. And what's happened for so long is agencies have really brainwashed, and I'm going to use that term, centers, and convince them that they just need to make the referral and get out of it, because agencies don't want the mom to hear about all the amazing things that the center has, because they might talk her into parenting, and then that agency is going to lose all that money. And I'm sorry, but if she can parent and that's what's best, we need to do that. So if the parent, we need to be walking alongside the parenting or the pregnancy centers, because she might decide to parent and they're going to need that. And guess what? She might decide to place, and she's going to need a village of people. Just like after an abortion, a woman's going to need a village of people to be there walking that grief with her and helping her.
So my assumption is that you engage the birth mom at all different stages of pregnancy. Do they, my question then is it common for them to waver in their thoughts? Do they go away for like a period of time? You don't hear from them. What are some experiences along those lines?
So it's interesting. Since the Dobbs case, I will say, and I can only speak for the 3 states that we're licensed in. We are licensed in Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. But we have a lot more women calling us very early on in their pregnancy, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, all of that. And they'll call and they'll say, I'm making an adoption plan. And I'm like, okay. But the truth is, you don't know if you're making an adoption plan. You haven't watched your baby grow on ultrasounds. You haven't felt your baby kick. There's so much, and so I have a lot of women that are like, no, this is what I'm going to do. And so, and it's been a challenge because a lot of them are homeless, and a lot of agencies will say, well, there's some agencies that will go ahead and match them. Let me just be honest. There's some agencies that will go ahead at 6 weeks and match them with an adoptive parent, even though we have no clue exactly what they're going to do. That's something that happens. I see that a lot. Other agencies will say, well, give me a call back at 20 weeks and we'll see if you're really still serious. Meanwhile, we've got a homeless mom who's pregnant who, needs help, right? So, we really believe in helping connecting moms with what we call birth mother mentors. And we have a birth mother mentor program to connect her with someone who has placed for adoption. And we try to kind of do it with similar, whatever their challenges are, or story, or why they're making an adoption plan. If we have a mom that's parenting other children, then I want to connect her with a birth mother mentor that was in that situation too. Because a lot of moms are like, I don't know what to say to this child versus that child. And how do I work through those things? We also encourage independent counseling. So we work with, we have independent counselors through Loveline and Pro Love Ministries. And and they are not adoption counselors. They're just counselors. They have been educated regarding adoption and grief, but they are not with the adoption agency. And I think that's important for them to have their own counselors and separate. But yeah, we do have women that disappear, and there's some that are like, I'm going to do this. And we're like, yes, let's connect you with the pregnancy center. And then at times at the end, they come to like, I didn't get a job like I thought. I didn't get the housing like I thought. And we're at the end and I need stability for my baby. And I want to do this. Then there's sometimes we have situations like we have one today where we've been working with a mom all since like October. She gave birth, and now she's like, you know what? I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can go through the grief of it. So it happens. And, we have to be there and be the people we say we are. And we have to love her and encourage her and make sure that she knows, regardless of her decision, we're there.
Wait. She gave birth in October?
No, we met with her in
Oh,
October
oh,
the
oh.
first time. So we've been walking alongside. She gave birth yesterday. So, hmm
Oh. And
hmm
so you hadn't matched her with anybody yet.
No, we have, and we've had to, yep. So she's built a relationship, but that's part of adoption. Adoptive parents walk into this knowing that she could change her mind. So that's one of the big hard things about adoption.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard.
What are some of the reasons, there's been lots of study on the reasons women consider abortion. Would you say that those are similar for women who consider adoption? And then what is it? Is it just that fear of the grief at the end? What is it at the end that can make them sometimes reconsider and decide that they want a parent?
The grief, the hurricane or tsunami of grief. A lot of women will kind of play this, I'll deal with that tomorrow. We call it the Scarlett O'Hara syndrome. And then tomorrow comes. And that's one of the reasons we talk a lot about it. It's another reason we really encourage our moms to meet with their own counselor. We pay for that, of course, and a birth mother mentor so that they can say, it felt like a tsunami hitting me, but this is still why I made those decisions. Those kinds of things. So a lot of it is the grief. That is a huge thing, the grief. There's also a lot of cultural stigmas within African American community, within the Hispanic community, and it goes back to slavery, that you don't make formal adoption plans. There's a lot of informal adoption plans that are done within those communities of family members, or they might say auntie and they might be a friend of the family, those kinds of things. But regarding formal adoption, that's not done. So that is something that happens a lot of societal pressures to moms and family pressures that they really don't, they don't want that to happen, but they're emotional and make the phone call to family, and which is one of the reasons we always encourage our moms to tell your family, talk to them about it, don't wait. Tell them that you're pregnant, tell them you're making this plan. A lot of family members and friends will step in and promise a lot, and promise to be helping, promise to be babysitting, promising diapers and all of that. And usually what we see is it happens for about 1 or 2 weeks, and then that's kind of goes on the wayside. So that happens a lot. But a big thing is the grief. It really is. People do not give enough credit for that, that deep grief that happens.
I feel like I should know this, and I probably should.
Well,
What
then
do
I'm just going to
laws? Yeah, you're gonna say, you're probably gonna start your answer with "duh." What are the laws regarding what say, if any, the dad has in adoption and this decision?
So it's going to vary by every state. Every state has different laws. So that's one of the things that's a little frustrating with adoption, because every state you have to be licensed as a licensed agency or an attorney. And every state not only has their own laws, they have their own rules and regulations. So it's so much fun. But generally, just the general thing is there's two kinds of fathers. There's a legal father and what we call a putative father. Not punitive like punitive damages, but putative, P-U-T-A-T. What it is a legal father is either married to mom at the time of conception and birth, or he's gone through the process of legitimation. So that means that he is on an equal playing field with mom. They both have joint legal custody, essentially. Okay. A putative father is a father who they are not married at the time of conception or birth, and he has not gone through legitimation. So that means that mom is the sole legal parent. He has no legal rights. So most states have what we call the putative father registry, which you're going to laugh at me and say I'm making this up, but I can take an oath if you need me to affirm that I am not making this up. But it is most states' law. California does not have this, go figure. But every man, I know. It is called the Putative Father Registry. Every man, by law, is supposed to register all of his sexual partners with the state in the state that he has sex in if it's outside of marriage. I know. That's going to be your fun party fact at your next party when you need to say truth or, but yeah. So I'll say that again. Every man is supposed to register his sexual partners with the state in the state that he has sex in if it's outside of marriage. So like in Georgia or South Carolina or Florida, you can go with vital records and you can go online and you can register and you can say, I have had sexual relations with this woman during this time period. So if a mom makes an adoption plan, we all have to check that and see if anybody's registered, which usually it's a big fat zero. I mean, in Georgia, they've now made it part of like the prison intake system. So if there is a hit, usually they're in prison. That
makes sense in Georgia, right?
I know. I mean, yeah, go dogs. At any rate, so y'all are gonna hate that you told me that you're a Georgia fan. Sorry, yeah. So that is one of the big things is that. So usually, what happens is the way that the law is, at least in the states that I'm in, I can't speak for all the states, but a father is on notice that a child could come of that union. So it doesn't have to be that the mother has said, hey, I'm pregnant. He is on notice that by having sex, that a child can come of that union, and it is essentially his responsibility to follow that sperm. And if to follow up to see if a child has come from that union. So it is, his responsibility to provide for her during the pregnancy. It's not just when a DNA test determines for him to be that he is the father or when the child is born. It is from the time of conception, which is something I think is really important because the women are going through all of this during the pregnancy and need care and need help and need financial help. And so it's his responsibility to be providing that. In Florida is an interesting state. Florida, I can serve, if she names the father, I can serve him before the baby's born. And he has to do a couple of things. He has to, one, register with the Putative Father Registry, Scott's new favorite weird fact about life. Two, he has to file with the court a visitation custody plan. So what he is proposing would be the visitation, schedule and everything for the child. And three, he has to start paying her child support while she's pregnant.
Wow.
And if he doesn't do all of those three things within 30 days of being served, then he cannot contest the adoption.
Okay.
And I think that Georgia, we are well on our way to that because in our heartbeat bill, we did put in for child support. So I think that I'm hoping that we're going to get to that because it's really nice that we have that in Florida. But, in the three states that we're licensed in, that is the law. A father's responsibility begins at conception. So we can give him notice. A putative father can sign adoption paperwork before the baby is born. A legal father cannot. He has to wait till the baby's born and sign around the same time as the mom. So that's probably more information than you wanted, but you asked an attorney, so there you go.
Yeah, I figured that was the answer. I was just seeing if you knew or not.
Well, then, duh.
Good job.
Good job. You passed. Does your organization intersect at all with, you mentioned briefly just in passing earlier, foster care? Do you work with within that area? What does that look like? How is that different?
We do not. Foster care, there's two different kinds of foster care agencies. There's the state's foster care, and in some states, there's privatized foster care agencies. So we do not do anything regarding foster care just because that's not our mission. Our mission is to love expectant moms. And so we want to keep the main thing the main thing. There's a lot of amazing organizations out there that do that. And we have a need for foster parents. We have a need to adopt children that are available for adoption through foster care. Abiding Love is a private child placing adoption agency, and we're different. So we don't work within the foster care agency.
So, as Marcy will attest, one of my roles here is to ask the awkward, strange question. But
I thought we already did that with the dads. No.
well, no, I've got
Can we
even
check
a
that off?
more awkward question. So
Got you. Okay.
it's about money, which is what makes it awkward. And you
Okay.
kind of referenced this
I'm
earlier.
here for it. hmm
I mean, obviously money plays into the decision. I mean, because, a
hmm
lot of times you mentioned homeless or I can't afford it or whatever. So when she's, there's a cost, there's a financial cost to pregnancy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's all the costs associated with it, whatever it is. I have
hmm
2 kids. I was there, but I just know it costs. There's a cost to the birth, right? There's a cost
hmm
associated with that. Um, who's paying for all that stuff?
Yeah. So, a couple of things. Most of the moms we serve are on Medicaid. So let's talk about the
Mm.
insurance part of that. So there are some moms that have private insurance, and so their insurance will pay if the adoption goes through, then usually the adoptive parents will cover any co-pays or things that the insurance hasn't covered. But I will say that for the most part, medical costs are all covered. So and so
Well,
we want.
and let me be specific. I didn't ask that well. The reason I'm asking is, let's say she's 3 months pregnant,
Mhm,
and she's like, I can't afford
mhm.
to be pregnant for
Right,
another 6 months, right?
right.
Whatever is associated with that. Obviously the job stuff. Maybe I can't financially afford to be
Hmm,
pregnant for the next 6 months. What then?
right. So the law allows for us, and again, every state is different, but the states that we're in allow for us to do what we call birth mother expenses, and it is regulated by state regulations, and by state law as to how it's done. Some states have a cap on it, all of those things, but we are allowed to help with anything that is related to the pregnancy. So housing, clothing, if she needs help with transportation to the doctor, clothes, all of those kinds of things. For her attorney, we believe that every mom should have their own attorney. So that's a pregnancy related cost. For counseling, all of those things. And so for us, I mean, I can tell you how most agencies do it. Some agencies will, again, when she calls and she says, I'm 6 weeks pregnant and I want to make an adoption plan, they will match with an adoptive parent. So the adoptive parent then starts paying all of those.
Hmm.
So yeah, let that sink in, right?
Hmm.
Regardless of whether she's really going to go through with it or not.
Wow. So even if
Yeah.
she backs out later.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Hmm.
So for us, we try, because again, we're getting women 6 weeks, and pregnancy is not,
Yeah.
it is a lie that it is 9 months. It is much longer. It is 40 weeks. So we're trying to make sure that, we're working within a reasonable amount of money, and we want to help her because we can help not only to the pregnancy, but eight weeks after pregnancy, right? And we want to set her up for success. So we really believe in utilizing resources, as many public resources as we can to help her with things, but a lot of times we can't. And so we have to figure those things out. And so we can help with birth mother expenses, for housing. A lot of our moms, they aren't going to be able to get a lease. I know some agencies will put them up in fancy places, and I hate that because after the baby's born, after that 8 weeks is up, they get kicked out. And so we want some place that they're going to be able to sustain themselves afterwards, after we're financially out of it. So we take a lot of responsibility with that, making sure that she's going to be able to financially care for this. But a lot of agencies don't care about things like that. So to some degree, the answer is the adoption agency fronts it for a good portion of the time, and then when a match happens, then the adoptive parents will pay that, will reimburse the agency for whatever birth mother expenses they've spent, and then that is at risk. And that's the reason why for us, we are very conservative about those things, and we're wanting to make sure that we are not coercing her, because a lot of women also, there's on the flip side, she's helped done all of this stuff and I feel guilty about changing my mind, but I really want to parent because of all this. And we don't want her to feel that way either. So there's got to be finding that right balance. For us, we do never give cash or gift cards or any of that kind of thing to a mom. There are a lot of agencies that wire money to mom. They're like, okay, what are your expenses this month? I'll send you $2,000. And I don't understand, as an attorney, I am not okay with that. As I don't think it's ethical. I know in the Florida state, I have other agencies, the norm is for them to give mom a check when she signs. I don't get that either. And they just give cash and stuff like that. We don't do things like that. We want to make sure that if we're helping with rent, we pay directly to the landlord, and there is a receipt, and we give a receipt to the judge. If we are going to Starbucks for a coffee, I am giving the judge that receipt because I don't want anybody to say that they were induced over a latte. Although at this hour of the day, a latte sounds really good. So, but I'm just saying. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does.
that is part of something, because it does. Pregnancy, it is expensive, and a lot of people don't realize that. We, since the Dobbs case, have had to become very creative in making sure we're utilizing all of the different public resources we can, because we are starting to work with women a lot sooner, and many of them do not end up even getting to the point where they get matched or that they choose adoption. And so, we have had to really work hard to make sure that we are fiscally responsible in keeping things going. I know for like last year, we served around 300 women in 3 states. And let me tell you, in the adoption world, I'm a big fat failure. You know why? Because we only had 14 adoptions. And you know what? My job wasn't to find, I don't see that as a failure, because we helped 300 women. We helped them to work out whether parenting or making an adoption plan. And I'm proud of those statistics. I know in the adoption world, I'm a failure. I don't care without that. But we're here to empower women. And so, unfortunately, birth mother expenses is something that a lot of people use for coercion. It is a necessary thing because women have needs. They need food. We have a huge problem regarding women that are pregnant and homeless and hungry. And we have got to, and drugs and alcohol are a big part of the women that we serve, unfortunately. And so we have to be able to provide resources for them.
How can we better communicate and reach these women?
I think, I think we're doing a good job. I think that the pro-life community is. I think we need to continue to make sure that she knows we see her. We aren't looking at trying to get her baby. We aren't trying to get her just to choose life, but that we see her. And we have got to make sure that she is seen, that she feels seen, and that the focus is on her and serving her and empowering her and reminding her that she can. The Planned Parenthood and the pro-choice community continues to say, you can't go to school and do this. You cannot achieve your dreams and, have a baby. And I'm sorry, but women are amazing. We can do amazing things. We are steel magnolias and strong women, and we can do things. And so we as a pro-life community need to be saying the truth, which is the complete opposite of what Planned Parenthood and the pro-abortion community is saying. You can. You empower her and make sure that she knows we see her, not just her pregnancy, not just this baby, but that we see her.
I love that. I love that reframing of the issue around the expectant mom. I love that the pro-life movement has made that pivot in recent years. And just from talking to you and thinking about adoption in different ways, it's clear that that's needed on this side too. So I love what you're doing. I have a really important question for you.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this episode is not sponsored by the Georgia Bulldogs, but I would like to know who your favorite Bulldog is and what game you're most looking forward to next season.
That's hard. That's
Roll
hard.
Tide.
I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
come on, Scott. You don't even believe that.
No, I don't.
to stir the pot.
Yes,
Scott's
I
a
am.
pot
That's exactly
Listen,
right.
I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean, I am really, I'm proud of the team that we've had.
Mhm.
I loved, this last bowl game that we had with FSU. We should not have been in that game, by the way. I want to go on the record
Agreed.
and say that we should have been
Agreed.
in,
Here's what we're learning here, folks. Women are strong. They're mighty. They just not very good at picking football teams. The name of the website is abidingloveadopt.com. Abidingloveadopt.com. If you want to learn more about what they're doing at Abiding Love Adoptions, check them out. Carrie Murray Nellis, thank you very much for joining us here on Dear Gina. It's been
Thank you.
fun. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Dear Jane. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We've got a new episode every week. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Don't forget to tell your friends about us either. Our producer is Kate Yule. Our editor is Jacob McCormick. For Marcy Little, I'm Scott Baker. Thanks for listening to Dear Jane.